franchise in Chicago. The ownership, bottom three. Team president, young general manager, hit and miss. If he left, fine. If he stayed, okay. Coaching staff, none of it works. None of it. Yeah, they got some decent players. The Jets have all sorts of good players. They're 4-10. And Caleb Williams, who was privately concerned before the draft but didn't want to be a bad guy, this was his nightmare. They have no leadership. Top down. And by the way, how do you fix it? Well, the only way to fix it, go to the Chargers, who also had a really good young quarterback, had a handful of really, really good players. And they went and stopped screwing around and finally paid big money for a coach. $15 million a year, Jim Harbaugh, and they have not regretted a second of it. They had a bad culture. Why? Most notably, they had a coach, Brandon Staley, that was completely over his skis, just like the Bears staff. You can't blame Thomas Brown. I mean, he's had 3 different parking spots in the organization in 4 weeks. They keep moving him up the food chain. He's not ready for this stuff. He'll be fine. He'll have a nice career. There is only one answer to this. It's Mike Vrabel. That's it. There are no other answers. No more lightweights, no more coordinators. This lift is too big. Even with Vrabel, I'm not sure he can solve everything. But this is an organization and, frankly, a city that's very, very political. And the only times in the history of Chicago, sports or politics, that you've ever had great success is with strong, defiant leadership. Look at the history of the city's sports. You had Theo Epstein. All right. You had Mike Ditka. All right. You start looking around from politics to sports. That's Chicago's answer. Vrabel's it. There's nobody else out there. There's nobody else. No college guys, no lightweight coordinators. The job's too big. And like the Chargers, at least, that's why I think this is a big lift. I'm not sure if Vrabel can solve it. The Chargers have always been good at quarterback. I mean, it was Dan Fouts who I grew up watching. Breeze, Rivers, Herbert. They've always been high octane, fun to watch. And it's not like the Spanos family. They had a reputation as being frugal. They weren't crazy. They weren't meddling. They were frugal. They no longer are. They finally just said, sometimes in life you just have to admit, I got to get out of the way. And the Spanos family said, you know what? We're giving it to Harbaugh, and Harbaugh's going to build a staff, and he's going to call the DC, the general manager, and they just got out of the way, and it works. And that's the only way to do it. I think this is a much bigger lift, much, much bigger lift than the Chargers' job. Like when they hired Harbaugh, we all kind of knew, oh yeah, they go win 10, 11 games, they may make the playoffs, and they're going to. Okay, we could feel that. But this one is, the division is really good with really good coaches. You could have had Cliff Kingsbury. You couldn't get out of the way. You could have had Harbaugh. Kevin Warren couldn't get out of the way. There is only one way to solve this thing. I mean, you won the Bryce Young trade, and you're only 1 game better than Carolina. And it was the steal of the decade. So it's not, and it's just not a quarterback thing. And let me give you an example. And for the television audience, you'll understand this. Radio's a little harder to follow. But if you look at every division in football not named the AFC South, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Kansas City, Rams, Tampa, Detroit, Philly, Washington, I can argue all have either the best owner, the best front office, or both. It's not just the quarterback and coach, although they are really important. It all starts upstairs. Bills, owner, front office, excellent. Lions, front office, excellent. Kansas City, all of the above. Washington flushed all the losers out, have much better people in. Rams, Stan Kroenke, Les Snead. Like it's just a scouting department. You can just keep blaming coaches. You can keep running around. This organization is broken. Vrabel is the only answer. I feel bad for Caleb Williams, but this is what he was worried about privately.
Okay, so let's talk about this. This is obviously an awful season for the Chicago Bears, and this is why you don't come out the gate and make such insane predictions like they're going to go to the Super Bowl, because now you say they're going to go to the Super Bowl and they have literally bottom record in the NFL. And it's it's bad. It's obviously bad, and at this point, they would really have the worst record. But the Giants are actively trying to lose. At this point, we know that the Raiders they even have a backup to their backup quarterback playing, which is obviously just a mess right now. So it's just like they would even be lower, the Bears, on their rankings, which makes it even worse considering they're trying to win games. But yeah, I agree with Colin in terms of this being a bigger job. And I've already talked about it, why they need like a real, true, big time alpha head coach and not necessarily going for some sort of a coordinator like a Ben Johnson or a Cliff Kingsbury for that matter, because this team is a mess. This team, this culture is a mess. You could be the biggest Chicago Bears fan and you have to reconcile that. You have to admit it. You have to acknowledge it. And it's frustrating, believe me, because I had high hopes for this team. I didn't think they were going to the Super Bowl, but I believe that they were going to be significantly better than this. And now that they moved on from Eberflus, which was the right move, their defense is a mess now. And that's why I said after the Thanksgiving game, when it was pretty much obvious that they were going to fire him, but it was before Eberflus was officially fired, I was like, it's a shame that the NFL isn't run like other companies where they're not like, hey, you know what? We're going to demote you. Like, you know what? You're great. We put you in the spot to be the head coach. That's not right for you. We just want you to be the defensive coordinator. But that just doesn't really happen in the NFL. And that would have been the way to go. To be like, hey, you know what? You really do have this defense locked and loaded. This defense is humming along. It's great. It's been great for the last couple of years. But you know what? You're not good at being a head coach, which is fine. You know, you were the CFO. We thought you could be the CEO. You can't. We're going to have you just concentrate on finances. That's your bread and butter. You're the CFO, not CEO. And obviously, again, that's not a common thing to do. And now Eberflus is gone, and now you don't even have a good defense. You had a good defense with a struggling offense and a new rookie quarterback, and had to then figure out the coordinator, figure this stuff out. Now you get rid of the head coach who clearly at least coached that defense well, because now this defense is a mess. I mean, it's just, as Troy Aikman put it, it's just so porous, man. I mean, offenses get to do whatever they want. And now it's like hard for me to even judge this game in terms of like coaching decisions, because it's like, this team's a mess. This team's a mess. And, who the heck's the coach right now? I mean, they're going for it on fourth down, which is just dumb. They're going for it on fourth down in their own territory. And I understand that's like the way of the NFL now, but you're not a good enough team. You're not a good enough team to be able to do that. You're going for it on fourth downs, 2-point conversions. That's what better teams do. You're not a better team. So you don't do it. I don't even care what the analytics say. And I'm pretty sure the analytics would say don't go for it. But even if they did, you're not a good enough team. As proven by you unable to do it. You can't even convert third downs. 1 for 12 on third down. Now you're going to go for it on fourth down? It doesn't make sense. 1 for 3 on fourth. You're not good enough. Just stick to the fundamentals. If you can't even do the fundamentals correctly, then you certainly can't do the aggressive stuff correctly. It's like teams that want to heave up threes. Unless you can make little layups and free throws, you shouldn't be shooting threes. Take care of the fundamentals. And so, like, that's irritating to see. Because right off the jump, that's how they started the game. I was like, oh, I already know how this game's going to go. I mean, and I called that out again in that Thanksgiving game. And I was like, why are you going for it? What are you doing? Don't go for 2-point conversions, this, that. And I was like, you're not good enough. You know how I know you're not good enough? Because you weren't able to even get a field goal off at the end of that game. Like, you're just not a good enough team. You're not coached enough. The culture's not good enough. You're not prepared enough. So don't try to do the other things that the top teams can do. It's not how you're going to win. You have to know your roster. You have to know your team. I mean, it's just that's honestly a pet peeve of mine. I mean, something even little, like on defense, you're giving up. It was 3rd and 17. Had the Vikings pinned back. And what happens? Jones is able to go right up through and convert a 3rd and 17. I mean, those are the things that just show you that this team is just like, they don't care anymore. They're not ready to play anymore. Caleb Williams is getting rocked. I mean, I cringed when I saw that and the fumble. I mean, I it was like PTSD. I was like, oh my God, please just get up. Are you okay? I mean, it was just like, I thought his head was literally going to pop off. We're just lucky that the rules have changed and you're pretty much not allowed to like actually take the head off the quarterback. Otherwise, I don't know if Caleb Williams would be playing football anymore. And then you had penalties, taking away your own touchdowns. it was just a mess start to finish. And then you have Caleb Williams obviously having some missed throws, some missed moments. But then when he was actually making good throws and was actually like, again, delivering the ball, then the receivers weren't catching it. And this is the way how it's been all year. Caleb's either missing throws, but then when he does make some nice throws, some beautiful throws, it's dropped. And it's like, well, you got to help out your rookie quarterback. He's not going to deliver the ball perfectly accurately, in his first year. So when he does, you got to catch it. You got to support it. And they don't do a good enough job. Caleb's not doing a good enough job to elevate this team, and the team's not doing a good enough job to elevate Caleb or pick him up when he's kind of going low. And again, look no further than what the Green Bay Packers did with Malik Willis, their backup quarterback, when he had to play a couple games. They made plays for their backup quarterback. That's what you do. That's how this works. Jaden Daniels, when he got off to his hot start, you had players like Ertz, McLaurin, they were making plays for him. He was making plays as well. But when it was time for the receivers to make some plays, they stepped up. They didn't leave him high and dry. And that's why this has always been a two-way street for the Chicago Bears. It's been both Caleb and the team itself. He's holding on to the ball a lot, which again, at this point, I expect it. But yeah, he was 18 for 31, 191 yards, 86.9 rating, and a fumble. And honestly, that last touchdown was pretty much just like a whatever. The Vikings were pretty much already, dancing and getting ready to just, get some massages, rest up. And, they're on to bigger and better things. They're on to the playoffs. They're actually competing for the number 1 seed. And that's why this game was never really necessarily going to be easy, because the Vikings are a top team. But that's why you're just looking to see, well, how do they execute? How do they play? Is Caleb looking like he's growing or developing? And like I've also said before, like I'm not expecting Caleb to grow or develop anymore at this point. I'm expecting him to regress because this team is such a mess. And who's the coach? Who's developing him right now? Nobody. So there's no reason to see Caleb even continue to grow and evolve throughout this season. None. So I don't expect it. I'm trying to find other little things that I can kind of get some of the positives, and there's none. Truly, there's none. At this point, you can make the argument that you're actually doing more harm to Caleb Williams by having him play right now. And that's essentially what Troy Aikman was kind of saying. He was pretty much saying, hey, you really got to gauge if this young quarterback is starting to lose his confidence. If he is, you got to get him out of the game. Troy Aikman was like kind of trying to speak that into existence. And it makes sense. The only benefit right now with Caleb is you get to just continue to face this adversity, continue to grow and learn from facing this adversity, having to answer all the bizarre, tough, weird, absurd questions from the media, sitting on the sideline, watching your team get beat pretty good. Like that is all character building. And I think there is a tremendous amount of benefit to that. In a lot of ways, I think this season will help him in the long term. Not from like an on-field perspective, but from a leadership perspective, from an emotional perspective. I think all of this will actually help Caleb in the grand scheme of things. I really do. And I think he'll be able to rely on this experience looking back on his career. When he's in year 2, 3, 4, and he's winning, or maybe he comes into a tough stretch of games, he knows, he's been there, he understands. It's not new to him. It won't be unique to him. He'll be able to taste it and feel it and touch it. He'll know it. And I think that goes a long way. So that's the one sliver of a silver lining for Caleb and the Chicago Bears team. But yeah, man, there's no sugarcoating it. There's really no sugarcoating it. When you look at these other teams, when you see the Vikings were able to be 5-9, again, yeah, right, like Colin pointed out, you're one game above the Panthers, and the Giants would if they didn't make the decisions that they've made, they would have a couple more wins, but they're actively trying to, they're trying their best, aka tank. Again, you're a game up on the Patriots and the Titans and the Browns, who had Deshaun Watson and Jameis Winston. It's just not really saying much. It's really, really, when you really look at these teams like this, you're just like, wow, this is the hallmark of just a team that is truly in disarray right now. And it's unfortunate. It really, really, really is. I continue to defend the Chicago Bears week after week after week. But at this point, I think everyone pretty much is just kind of like, yeah, if you're playing for a contract, you're definitely going to be trying pretty hard because you want to either be resigned, you want to go somewhere else, whatever it is. if you're near the tail end of your career, maybe you're still trying to get some of those numbers, kind of get those career totals up. And if you're anything in between, you're just kind of like, I'm just trying not to get hurt, man. If you pretty much know, like, yeah, I'm getting the money that I'm going to get. I'm going to get the contract that I'm going to get. Or I'm already taken care of. I'm already signed. I'm already hooked up. Then you're just like, oh, man, I'm just trying not to get hurt right now. I'm trying to, not tear an ACL, MCL, whatever. And it's just a mess. It's a true mess. And it's a bummer. It is. It's a bummer. It would be cool if in December we were talking about, man, the Chicago Bears, like, who wants to face them in the play? Oh, man, they have the 6th seed. They have the chance to get the 5th seed and a dark horse to still win the division. Yeah, man, that week 17 is going to be a huge game. Like, oh, man, it looks like they're going to be facing the Buccaneers. Wild card round. Oh, man, Caleb versus Baker. 2 reigning #1 overall picks. Man, I think I like the Bears in this one on the road. Dude, they're going to be able to silence that crowd. But we don't have any of that conversation. We're just like, this is a mess. Who are they going to hire as a coach? Okay, they hire Vrabel. Who's going to be the OC? What do they do with Caleb? Who do they move on from? Who do they draft? It's a bummer. It's a bummer. And, I'm not this diehard Chicago Bears fan. So for the actual Chicago Bears fans, I genuinely feel bad. There was a lot of hype, and it did not live up to it by any stretch of the imagination. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams? What do you even make from this season, this moving forward? What are you even looking for at this point for these next few games? And, what do you want to see the Chicago Bears do moving forward? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.